Well, we're coming back today to continue our journey through Sue Plumtree's life. And if you haven't watched the first two videos, then I'd recommend you do go back there because it's a fascinating story of a life that has seen many, many changes over the years, but a journey to discovering what true love is all about and how to achieve it. So, you might be somebody who's in a happy marriage and you're just enjoying the story, or you might be somebody that's really struggling and something in Sue's story is resonating. And the thing is that Sue's out there now helping people to discover the joy of how you can find those good relationships. And we're going to touch on that later. But first of all, thank you again, Sue, for coming along.
Thanks for asking me. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, we're going to have a look now at your step into a new kind of relationship. We've looked at the years, the early years when you got married and the length of that marriage, which is a very long time. And then the years when you were single and enjoying life again.
Yeah.
So we finished the last video where you approached the new relationship, the new man in your life. So let's look there first of all. So when did you first realize that there was somebody else that you wanted to get to know better in a different way?
Well, what actually happened was I had no idea there was anyone. I was happy as I was. And I used to be a volunteer for an organization in England called the University of the Third Age, the U3A. And I used to run a workshop called, or a group called the Life Enhancing Group. And then one day I thought it would be really good fun to start a new one called Come Lunch With Me, because I like eating, I like cooking, and it just seemed a nice idea to meet like-minded people. And as it turned out, this man was interested enough to give me a call. And so he became part of the group. And the reason I mentioned it specifically was because I wasn't looking for anybody. I just wanted to meet more people and do something different and have fun
Yeah.
using something I liked doing.
So there was, because that's really interesting, isn't it? Because in a way, it's a little bit like when I met my husband a long time ago. And the funny thing was that he was at the time in a relationship with somebody else, but his mum clearly thought that I might, have some kind of designs on him. So she told me, she said to me, don't get, Dirk's, he's going to get married to this other girl. Now I didn't even know this other girl, and I didn't have any designs on Dirk at all. I was studying for my finals at university, but she was clearly a bit worried about it. But what it did mean is that I got to know Dirk. There was no part of me that was wondering, oh, is he going to ask me out or anything like that. So it meant it was a very natural friendship.
Yeah.
So when the point came that he did want a relationship with me, I could I could just say yes. I just it just happened really. So you got to know this gentleman. We shall find out his name in a minute if you're listening. You got to know this gentleman in a really non-threatening situation, just as a friend.
Absolutely. He got to probably like me first, a bit more, because the idea of the group was to go to each other's homes and one would focus on the main meal, the other one would have drinks, the other one would be bringing the pudding and so on. But we went out for a coffee and he said that he didn't want people to go, he didn't want me specifically to go to his place in case I changed my mind about him.
Oh.
And I said, not a chance in hell. I'm too deeply in like with you. And that was Dave.
Oh, gosh, that was quite a vulnerable thing for him to say, wasn't it?
Yes, yes, indeed. Yeah. But how did I recognize him? I remember he started coming over and just having a chat. And then one day he called me out because I like asking questions. I'm curious about people. And then probably the second time he stopped me and he said, I know what you're doing. You're asking me all these questions to stop me from asking you about you. And I went,
Ah,
oh, there's nothing to say, nothing special. And he said, I don't believe that. And then he started asking me questions. And then I had a choice. And it all happened in a nanosecond. I only realized I had a choice looking back. And it was when you talk with women, it's different. You kind of open your heart, you go straight to the bottom line. But with men, it's usually there's oh, if I say that, he might not like me, and you kind of play around as to how to reply. And I took a risk and I decided to reply to his questions as if he were a woman,
okay.
meaning I told him the truth, basically, without varnish. And then what actually happened was he, well, I wondered whether he would judge me, but he never did. He never has, ever. How many silly things I might do, he will never, ever, ever judge me. But on that particular occasion, what happened was he would go away and come back, and he had thought about what I said and asked follow-up questions.
Oh
And
gosh.
I was blown out of the water. Nobody had listened to me like that before. And I had no idea it was one of my deepest needs because you don't know what you never had.
No,
And that was probably when I fell in love with him, and I didn't even know I had.
no, that's I mean, it's very moving. I mean, one of the biggest gifts that any of us can give somebody is to listen to them. And I've
Yeah.
often thought that. And I've met people who've you don't know what it is to be listened to. And that
No.
can have been as children because the parents just weren't there or they weren't interested. As
Mm,
teenagers because they feel unheard or unloved or,
yeah.
in a relationship. I mean, I remember thinking to myself at one time, the loneliest place can be in the middle of a crowd. It can be in the middle of a lot of people. And
Yes.
um, some people hide that and some people don't. Um, so that's wonderful. So you had this moment of realizing that not only was he interested, it wasn't just conversation. It
Mm,
wasn't just filling a gap, just talking to filling a gap. He genuinely wanted to know who
yes.
you were, the real you.
Yes. Not to impress me or anything like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that's that's
By the
that's very
way, the
special,
name is Dave. I tend
Dave. That's right.
to refer to him either my Dave or my wonderful Dave, but Dave.
So that's very special. I mean, if you're listening again, you may be in a relationship and that's just struck you, that you realize that you don't know what it's like to be listened to.
Mm,
You know what it's like to do the listening. You know
yes.
what it's like to be the one who always has to listen, but you don't feel listened to. And as you said earlier, Sue, quite commonly, men, uh, women will share at a deeper level
Mm,
with each other. And sometimes they try to do that with a man, and the man doesn't really want that. I
yeah.
think I've learned a lot with my husband about the way that the male brain works, also in a listening
Mm,
point. Because as women, we will often tell a story of an event or an experience that we had, and we'll put all the bits and pieces into it. Why did somebody say that, or who had told them that in the first place, etc. So you'll be introducing people into the conversation that your husband or your partner doesn't even know, never even heard of. And it becomes quite big. And what they want is the point of the story.
mm,
They want to know, well, what do you feel about it? Or did it hurt you? Or, you know, they want to know, they want to get to the bottom of it quicker. They don't want to
mm.
go around the houses. So, again, I do have to laugh at myself sometimes because I will start giving Dirk like all the information and I can see his brain thinking like,
Where is she
where are we
going with
going?
this?
Yeah. But being listened to, that's a wonderful gift. So you continued with the relationship and the relationship got closer and then you got married.
Not quite like that. For one thing, it took him 4 months before he told me he loved me. And the way it went was he sent me an email. Let's meet on this day, in that cafe. Um, and I have something to say to you. Don't worry, it's nothing untoward. And I spent the next week going, what you mean nothing untoward? I've been thinking untoward, and you're saying nothing untoward. And what if you say that you don't want to spoil anything because it might interfere with our friend? What if, and I really got myself into this. And then I'm sitting there. I arrived early, and he walks in, holds my hand, and he says, Sue, I love you. That's it. And it felt like the world suddenly turned and everything was okay. That was it.
Oh,
That is it. Yeah.
because I mean, I'm just remembering from our first conversation how you said that your first husband never told you that he loved you.
Never, ever.
And, again, if you're watching us, go back to that first video because, Sue tells a story there where she put a note in her first husband's lunchbox to say, to share some love with him, and he just wasn't interested. And how harsh that is. We all need to know that we're loved.
Yeah.
It's it is part of our, oh, again, it's part of our birthright. We're born to be loved.
Oh,
We are
that's
born to be loved.
wonderful. I love that. Yes. It makes an incredible difference. Life can really be harsh,
Mm.
but when we are together, it's manageable. Everything is
Yes,
manageable.
yes. Yeah, we're not supposed to be on our own. And it's not to say that there's something wrong with being single. It's just that very often, if there are gaps and you are on your own and you're lonely, then well, it's not surprising because we're not born to be on our own.
Mm,
Now, Sue, I want to go into something here, Sue, because clearly there are going to be people watching and listening, and you may have been following the story and thinking, uh, you know, I would love some of that. I would love to know how did Sue make that journey, and is it possible for me to make that journey? Because the thing is, what you experienced in the in between years, you never set out to find a new life partner. That wasn't
no.
your goal. It wasn't your purpose, and it wasn't what was happening. So, what do you think are the biggest things that happened during that period of time that enabled you to find a new life partner?
A number of things. I got to know myself, meaning what made me tick. What did I need to feel loved? What are my deepest needs? What am I willing to tolerate and what am I not willing to tolerate? And I got to like and respect myself and have boundaries that I would be finally found comfortable to stop when somebody crossed the line. And so many people say, oh, I couldn't possibly, what if, what if they walk away? What if they reject me or judge me or think, who does she think she is? Or something like that. But I know the answer to the question, who does she think she is? I am Sue Plumtree and I deserve better.
Mm.
And you don't say that, obviously, but you know that. And when you know that, you project an entirely different energy.
Mm.
And people know that they, not mess with you, not really, or take you for granted. One of the things about Dave and me, we do not take each other for granted, not ever.
Mm.
And what does it look like? He says, I've got to go out. Do you need something? But I forgot. Actually, I do. Thank you. If you hadn't asked me, I wouldn't have thought of it. That would be so. Um, Fancy a cup of coffee? I'm going to make myself one. It's just some tiny, that doesn't have to be big. So
Yes.
those little gestures to know that I'm here, that she could use a break. Oh, yes. He will stop me when I get, in the flow. He'll say, come and sit down with me. Let's have a break. and I drop everything and we sit for a while, kind of refresh my brain and come back to work. And then he goes back and carries on. Um, we accept each other as we are. I mean, I know for a fact that there are things that I don't understand about him, that I don't agree about some of his beliefs, but they're his, and I don't go there, I don't argue. There are some issues that, for example, I will never change his mind. And so I just let him talk it through and really listen to what he has to say. Really listen. I turn to him. I drop what I'm doing. If I'm watching television, reading a book, I put the book down. I take off my headphones. I turn to him and active listen to what he has to say, even if he's talked about it 20 times and it's only been 9 years. But I still listen because he needs to express it. So this is the thing. Oh God, not again. How boring. We don't do that. Neither
No.
one of us. And maybe that's what they mean, but you have to work at relationships. Maybe that's what they mean. But we also do a lot of flirting. We go and ask for hugs, or he will prepare dinner because we still take it in turns, and I'm putting my arms around him. That's all. That's all. And then saying bye. And that's all I have to say about it. And it's just wonderful, very loving.
Mm. Is that, what's coming across very much is that appreciation of each other and the differences in each other as much as the similarities, that we're not made for changing other people. Relationships fall down when people go into them with a view to changing the other person and making them like you want them to be.
As I
That's
did with
that is
Bill.
such yeah, and it's a disaster as you found. We can't do it. It doesn't work. But the truth is, we can change. Of course, we can. But as you get to know the other person and realize things about them, you become aware. There's times you want to bless them, and you might change things that you do just because you love them.
Mm,
Actually, maybe it's a really important thing for your partner that you have 11s, for example, that you sit down and have a cup of coffee at 11 o'clock every day, and that wasn't something you ever did before. Well, you might decide to do it because that's what's going to bless him or
and it
her.
gives us time together.
Yes, yes. I mean, for me, one of the more recent things I mean, we've been married nearly 40 years. Now I've recently discovered and been diagnosed with ADHD, and that's been so helpful because I don't sleep. I have a very active mind, always have done, and can keep going and going and going and going. Dirk is
Mm,
a night he goes to bed earlier and would get up earlier. And understanding how I work and what he needs, it's helped us to sort of really work on that a bit so that I do my utmost to stop what I'm doing at 10 o'clock so that by 11 o'clock I'm ready
mm.
to go to bed. Now, that doesn't happen every night. I'm not perfect at it, but it's changing because an awareness of what he needs, and he's now got an awareness of how I work.
Yeah,
And that's, like you say, it's working at it. Just because we've been married nearly 40 years doesn't mean to say there aren't still things that we can change.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And that's
So,
so little things matter.
oh, they certainly do. They certainly do. What would you say if anybody's watching us now? Um, and we're coming to a close, but I would love to think of three things that if somebody's been watching the series and watching the three conversations, and they know that maybe their relationship with their partner, or it could just be general relationships, are not good. And they recognize that actually they they don't love themselves, they don't like themselves, or there's something wrong with their own relationship with themselves. Can you give us three things that they could do as a starting point, just to start changing that?
They need to start noticing. They need to get to know themselves. They need to start noticing what they do that does not work for them. For example, Say you work from home, your partner works outside. You finish working early and you're dying for adult conversation. The minute your husband comes in, you go straight for your partner and say, I'm so glad you're home. This is what happened. That is what happened. What is your partner will say, no, 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 I'm not interested. I don't want to know. You need to give them time to decompress, get rid of their day, maybe offer them a glass of wine or coffee, whatever works for them. And then um, saying, how was your day? And this is how was my day. And then you can share it. But timing is really, really important. So that would be, so become aware of your partner's needs, your husband's needs. Find one of the things that I discovered from my first marriage, looking back, was that actually he probably did love me, but not in the way that I recognized as love.
Mhm.
So I felt unloved because I knew that I needed to be heard and understood, and I never got that from him. He needed to be appreciated, but I couldn't give it to him because I was so full of resentments. So if you're in a relationship, start paying attention to what is it that your partner really needs from you, whether you're a man or a woman, it's irrelevant. What does he need from you? What makes him feel loved and appreciated? And sometimes you need to just ask. Sometimes you need to ask. When I give you a cup of coffee, do you feel loved? Do you know how much I love you? And they might say, really? Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Well, think about it now. And then you have an entirely different conversation. But you need to know what makes your partner tick. If you only just met, then you need to know what they need to feel loved. And they need to know what you need long before you enter into a committed relationship, because you might not be able to give it to one another.
Yeah,
What
that's
else?
an important. Well,
Self-awareness. You need to know what matters to you. You need to know what hurts you.
mm,
And you need to figure out why you haven't said before. Because if you don't tell them, they'll carry on doing it because
mm,
they don't know that it hurts you. But so many people think, if I tell them, it'll make things worse. No, no, it won't. Not telling them makes things bad because your resentment will keep on growing.
mm,
So learn to ask for what you need, but first you need to know what you really need. And many people don't know. They know what they don't like, but not what they do want. So figure that out first if you are in a relationship, and then ask for it. And that too is a bit of an art, because there are ways and ways of asking. Some work and some won't.
mm.
But find out what you need first, what is really important to you. Also, your relationship cannot be the center of your life. It's not possible. So have something of your own. It's a hobby, an interest, a mission, but it doesn't have to be a mission. Something that gives you pleasure, that gives you joy, that doesn't depend on your partner. So a life of your own that takes a lot of pressure off the relationship.
Yes.
God, you want more?
No, no. Do you know what? It's just I was just thinking. Um, some people with our marriage, I've had to be away a lot, whether it was supporting one of our children, my mum, and so on. So there's been quite a lot of times when Dirk and I have been apart, but it's really worked. There hasn't been he's not been sat at home, miserable. and not being able to go on with his life. And neither have I when I've been away. And the phrase that we are independently connected sort of came to us. That's what our marriage is, that we actually do both have our own interests, our own work, our own
Mm.
relationships, and so on. And neither of us has ever tried to take those away from the other person.
No, he's my
And
champion.
yeah, because you absolutely need them. I think you've touched on something that's really, really important. Because when two people become completely dependent on the other one, or even if one becomes completely dependent on the other one, it's an imbalance in the relationship.
Mm.
And I'm sure it's why some people struggle at retirement. If the partner
Ah,
retires and
yes,
suddenly wants you to be there for him all the time, and you've actually been used to doing all sorts of other things, and I know that it can
absolutely.
be friction. Um, so it's a really deep topic, this. And if you are watching us, then don't stay in that bad relationship or feeling bad about yourself, feeling lonely inside a relationship, because there's so much help for you out there. And Sue is a fantastic, I will tell you right now that you couldn't choose a better person to go and talk to. Sue
Thank
offers
you.
opportunities just to come and meet and share. And as you've seen already, I'm sure, listening is so important to her. So you can be sure that you will be held and listened to, nurtured, and there'll be a space for you to actually let go of the pain, the worry, the anxiety. And actually, do you know what? Maybe you've never been in a relationship and you don't know how to get one. You don't even know how to make one. That's also a good time to talk to Sue. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
just because you've had a bad relationship.
Mm.
Because
I
isn't
would
it
love
right,
to, I'd
Sue?
love to offer anyone who listens to this, I'd love to talk with them. And no strings attached, just a conversation, getting to know you, listening to where you are now, where you would like to be, what's missing for you, and just talk. I'd be happy to do that.
Brilliant. Well, we're going to be sharing Sue's links so that you've got her information along with these videos. If you'd like to talk, definitely make that call, book that call, make that appointment, and have a chat with her. And watch out for some more trainings and workshops, mini
Mm.
courses, all sorts of content that Sue has that can help you move away from the difficulties and the struggles that you're going through. Move away from the loneliness, the judgment, the self-judgment,
Mm.
because we
Yes.
can be our biggest, harshest critics, can't we? And make contact. If you've enjoyed listening to us, then again, say so below. Sue and I will both watch out for any comments so that we can come and support you in any way we
Mm.
can. And if you're
Absolutely.
watching, if you're watching and you've got a story to tell, by the way, and there's something in your life that you can help other people with, and you're passionate about it,
Yeah.
then I would love to hear from you so that I can get you up here and talk through your story with you too. So thanks for joining us. Thanks very much, Sue, for coming along and sharing your story. We've very much appreciated it.
Thank you. A real
And
pleasure.
it's really good. So thanks very much. And we look forward to finding out what impact this whole series has. Don't stay silent. Come and talk to us.
Bye.